Good evening. It's October 2nd, 2019, 6:30 p.m. The Platting Board comes to order. May I have roll call, please?
Dan Young.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Clayton Walker.
Present.
Christina Enix.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Valerie Ritz.
Present.
Jenna Welting.
Present.
Thank you.
We have a full board tonight. May I have a positive motion for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Mr. Cross. Mr. Porter seconds. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item is action summaries. May I have a motion to approve the action summaries? Mr. Clayton, Ms. Ritz seconds. Any discussion, any corrections? The action summaries are approved. May I have a motion for the minutes from Wednesday, September 4th? Mr. Walker and Mr. Cross seconds. Is there any corrections or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Next item is special order of business. Disclosures. Are there any disclosures tonight? Great. Oh. Ms. Lipson.
Thank you. I would ask to be recused in case S12507, which is on the consent agenda. Spinell Homes is a current client of my firm's, and I have an ongoing business dealings and financial interest in terms of their development activities in the municipality that I do not believe I can be fair and impartial.
Okay, may I, thank you. May I have a Since it's on the consent agenda, you don't have to be recused, but you can refrain from voting. With that, I will also disclose that I'm currently doing work for Spinell Homes. However, I can be fair and impartial, so I'm not working on this property. I'm working on other properties, so I need a motion to direct me to participate. Mr. Walker and Mr. Cross seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I move to direct you to speak on case S12507 Spinell Homes, Inc. You've stated that you don't have any financial interest in the matter, that you can be independent and impartial in your consideration of the matter.
Thank you. Is there any objections to me participating tonight? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. I will participate in the vote. Are there any other disclosures tonight? Next item is the informational items, the abbreviated plat actions for summary for September 3rd, 2019. Is there any comment or discussions? Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have two cases. May I have We can either split these up if we wish, or we can, or just vote on them together. Okay, may I have a positive motion to approve the consent agenda, please? Mr. Walker and Ms. Ritz seconds. Does anyone wish to pull one of these and vote on them separately? I hear and see none. Then, is there any objections to the consent agenda? Then the consent agenda carries. Next item on the business, or on the agenda, is new business. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for its regular meetings, the board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedures by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its hearing is, after the staff presents its completed on, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established by the Commission Rules of Procedures. Petitioners, including his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for a rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., are allowed 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decisions per AMC 21.30. The first case for public hearing is case S12508. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you. This is a request to vacate the northern half, 25 feet, of the existing 50-foot width of a screening easement that was platted when the Potter Heights subdivision was originally subdivided in 1981. The easement is 50 feet wide and 300 feet in length, located on the southern portion of the applicant's lot, abutting Potter Heights Drive, and continues along the entirety of Block 2. The same 50-foot screening easement is also present along the south side, Block 1, of Potter Heights Drive. The screening easements are apparently intended to provide a vegetative buffer on both sides of Potter Heights Drive to help retain the scenic character of the neighborhood and to screen residences from noise and glare resulting from traffic. No reviewing agencies had objections to the proposed vacation. 54 public hearing notices were mailed on August 12, 2019, but no comments were received. Examining the criteria for approval. 1, the statement by the applicant alleging the right-of-way is surplus to the current and future needs of the public and the reasons for determining the right-of-way is surplus. So while no dedicated right-of-way is involved in this request, the screening easement appears to have been intended to benefit the public by preserving the scenic character of this section of Potter Heights Drive and screening residences from noise and glare. if half, 25 feet, of the existing 50-foot screening easement is vacated, 25 feet would remain. Per Table 2107-1, landscaping specifications, required width for screening landscaping, L3, in Title 21 is 30 feet and is primarily intended to screen commercial or industrial uses from residential uses. In both the 1978 and 1981 versions of Title 21, in effect during the subdivision of this property, screening strips were allowed to be required by the Platting Authority to mitigate impacts to residential properties from highways and incompatible uses. In such cases, at that point, the minimum screening width required was 10 feet. Potter Heights Drive is not a highway, and the existing 50-foot screening easement does not separate residences from incompatible commercial or industrial uses. This suggested the 30 feet required for L3 landscaping in current Title 21 provides more than sufficient landscaping to mitigate noise and glare and provide a screening buffer. In addition, the 25 feet of screening easement that would remain after the proposed vacation is greater than the 10-foot minimum width required in 78 and 81. Even if Potter Heights Drive were to be widened in the future to the neighborhood collector IB standard of 70 feet, 20 feet of the screening easement on the applicant's lot would still remain. The remaining easement width would also require the retention of a generous amount of natural vegetation for the purpose of retaining the scenic character of the area. Therefore, the 25 feet of screening easement that is proposed to be vacated may be considered surplus to the current and future needs of the public. The remainder of the criteria, 2 through 6, are not applicable to this because it does not pertain to right-of-way or traffic circulation. With that being said, the Planning Department recommends approval of the vacation of the northern 25 feet of the 50-foot easement identified in Plat 81-224, subject to the conditions on page 4 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? May we have the...
I forgot a question.
You have a question, Mr. Clayton? Mr. Walker? Go ahead.
Why are we considering this under a right-of-way if it's not within the right-of-way?
So we only have one set of criteria for vacations, and those are in the application before us. And traditionally, even though this is an easement, anything intended for public benefit, right-of-way easement, et cetera, is looked at under this section. And it's so in Title 21, this specific type of easement is required to be granted by, or vacation of it is intended to be granted by the Planning Authority. And so these are the only conditions we have available to examine it by.
And what would be the current screening easement if we were applying currently?
Sure. So current code would be 30 feet, but that's intended, that's L3 buffer landscaping. So if you take word for word, buffer in old code to buffer to new code, screening, that would be L3 in new code, in the current code. L3 requires 30 feet of width. However, the code says that that's specifically or generally intended for separation of incompatible uses like industrial, residential, or highways and residential. This is located in an area that, is a pretty low volume street and doesn't have any incompatible uses surrounding it. So that's kind of why.
So under our current code, if they were applied today, no screening would have been required.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? May we have the petitioner's representative, please? Please state your name for the record and spell your last name, please. And also let us know if you'd like to reserve time for rebuttal.
My name's Stephen Callahan, Callaghan, and I'll reserve whatever's left.
You may proceed. Thank you.
I'm petitioner's representative, and through the chair, we concur and agree with the Planning Department's recommendation. And I'm just here to answer questions, if you have any.
Thank you. You have 9 minutes and 46 seconds for rebuttal. Are there questions for the petitioner's representative? Mr. Cross.
Oh, yes, Mr. Callaway, Mr. Cross, thank you for coming in this evening. Curious, I see an as-built for a house on Lot 10. I'm guessing that because this house encroaches into the screening easement, that's kind of what's perpetuating this, or what is the, what difficulty are we looking to resolve?
That is one of the issues, was the house is encroaching into the screening easement.
Did that create a lending issue with the house where, in a complication with selling that property, or what kind of complications were created by the house encroaching?
Complication, I guess you'd say it's encroaching about perhaps a foot into the easement, 1.5 feet into the easement. And the complication comes in that you're not supposed to be encroaching into the screening easement. And perhaps the screening easement was a little bit excessive at the time when it was platted. The sale of the house, it is up for sale. We are trying to sell the house.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But what we're trying to do is potentially down the road, the potential buyer may want to build a shed or garage.
Or a deck off the front of the
Deck
house,
off
or
the
whatever.
front or something like that.
Okay.
So, and that's one of the reasons for the screening, or for the vacation of the easement. And the other thing we have going on is the garage and the driveway is on that side of the house as well.
What year was that house built?
What year was the house built? Yeah, approximately 23 years ago.
Okay, I was just looking for a year because, okay, that would have been after the, okay.
Yeah, and this is a very steep lot, and the slope goes down towards the northwest. So when you go into the house, you're basically going into the second floor, like the garage is on the second floor, and then you go down.
Are there any other houses along those that we know that encroach into the 50-foot?
I don't know.
All right.
I would guess there probably are a few structures, looking at the aerial photography, that may encroach into the easement.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Staff has comment.
Yes, just to follow up on that, I did look the best of my ability at the surrounding subdivision, and the easement, as was noted, is very large for the purpose it's serving, and there are a few houses that appear to be close to it. It's difficult to say whether or not they actually encroach, but they come very close, if not cross the line a little bit.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner's representative? Would you like to use, Mr. Walker has another question.
So right now, we've got 50 foot of screening, is that right?
Yes. through the
And you'd
chair,
like
yeah.
that to be reduced to what again?
25 feet through the chair, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Would you like to use any of your rebuttal time?
Through the chair, no, I don't think we need to use the rebuttal time.
First, I have to open this to the public to see if there's anyone from the public wishing to testify. Then you can choose to use your rebuttal time.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify tonight? Anyone at all? It's up to you. Would you like to use any of your rebuttal?
Through the chair, no.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion? And Mr. Walker is going to make the motion, and Mr. Cross is going to second it. Mr. Walker, would you State your motion for the record, please.
In case S12508 Potter Heights screening easement vacation, I move that the board approve the vacation of the northern 25 feet of the 50-foot right-of-way identified in Plat 81-224, subject to conditions 1 and 2 found on page 4 of the staff's presentation.
And Mr. Cross seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, we've heard testimony here tonight that the right-of-way is surplus to the current and future needs of the public and that the standards set back in 81 when this was originally established have been reduced such that the screening of this nature would no longer be required for this development because there are no conflicting uses in the area for which screening would otherwise be required. The property is not on the official streets and highways plan. It is not on a existing planned public street or infrastructure. It does not. It's not on the quarter-mile grid, and there's no evidence that the roads as developed will not be able to handle future circulation in the area. The easement also well, I think the reduction to 25 feet will get the offending house out of the way. It will also be probably a reduction in fire hazard on the hillside to have trees be able to be cleared farther from structures than is allowed under the present circumstances. And I will be voting in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Is there any comment or discussion? Are there any other findings? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just have a quick question.
Yes, Mr.
On something like this, where the gentleman who owns lot 10 is, that only benefits lot 10, but it seems to me like lots 1 through 6 should have been on this. We could have resolved the issue with 7 lots as opposed to just 1. I'm just kind of curious what the process would be for, it's pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered. Anybody else who has any of the lots that are affected by this could easily benefit from our findings and the research. Why wouldn't we do this for all 7 lots as opposed to just 1? Because now we've got.
They didn't join in the motion.
They should have.
Mr. Hodges has a response.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That has come up in the past when vacating things like this. It would require each property owner to be on the application. So it would be incumbent on the applicant or applicants to make a joint application. The planning department doesn't have the authority to act on behalf of them.
Oh, that's unfortunate. It could have been real cheap. It could have been a lot cheaper for everyone to do it under one application than 7 separate. Thank you.
Any individual may have appeal rights relating to actions of the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision, An interested party must file with municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503 or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. Next item on the agenda is persons to be heard. Do we have any persons to be heard? We have no reports tonight. Do we have any board member comments tonight? Last item on the agenda is adjournment. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I did push the request to speak. So the planning officer is not here tonight, but we wanted to thank board member Christine Enix for her 6 years of service, and you, Mr. Chair, for 10 years of service to the Platting Board. We just wanted to say planning staff has enjoyed working with you throughout all the years, as we can see with all the subdivisions you guys have approved. And we just really appreciate your professional manner at every hearing. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And I think, Lori,
Thanks.
there's some proclamations, but we don't have them here tonight. Is that correct? The mayor's office still has to sign them, so we'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
It was a pleasure serving.
Thanks.
May I have a motion for adjournment?
Do we need to elect a chair for next meeting?
If we do it next week, then the new members will be able to vote also.
Okay, we got new ones lined up. All right.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second, and we are now adjourned.